All right, inshallah, we'll get started here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم ينفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا كريم رب العالمين اللهم نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا والشفاء لكل داء آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, all you guys are doing well. May Allah bless you and guide you and keep you on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. We're going into our third session on the rise of Salahuddin Al-Ayyubi. I just want to preface this session here because every week I end up wanting to add more things, and I go back and I say, you know what, I didn't cover this last week, and then I end up adding things. So I think last week I said we're going to start on and actually talk about Salahuddin today, which we're not going to do because there's still a lot of stuff that kind of builds up to his life. And I get more into it, and I feel like, you know what, I have to share this, and I want to add this to my presentation. So forgive me for that. And it's probably going to happen next week too. I'm probably going to say, you know what, we're going to go back and add a couple more things, and hopefully, inshallah, you guys all benefit from it. So today, what we're going to go over is that, you know, last week, those who are with us, we covered the conquest of Edessa, which was one of the provinces of the Crusaders, right? And so just going over this really quick. This is the one, the up here is, I have a little laser pointer. The top there is the county of Edessa, one of the four principalities of the Crusaders. And so we talked about how Imad ad-Din Zengi or Zengi was able to conquer that area and take it back from the Crusaders. So that happened, I believe it was 1154. And so we're going to go back a little bit because I didn't really talk about how Aleppo, which is the current day city of Halab, how it was taken over, because it all kind of goes together through the Zengi dynasty. So I wanted to kind of go over that. So go back to this really quick. So we're going to go over how Aleppo was captured. Imad ad-Din Zengi, his next move after conquering Edessa, what does he focus on there? Who takes over the power of Imad ad-Din after him? We spoke about last week how, and once again, let me preface this also, when we talk about these Muslim leaders, they're good people, mashallah, right? Like I said, but they're not prophets. And I don't want you guys to get let down when you hear things like, I can't believe he did that. So we talked about Imad ad-Din. He liked alcohol a little bit too much, and we all know alcohol is forbidden in Islam. But, you know, everyone has their faults. I'll just leave it at that. And he loved drinking, and his servant, we told a story last week that he got up at night, he saw his servant was drinking from his goblet or his cup, his wine, and told him, you know what, I'm gonna discipline you when I wake up. And then his servant killed him, and that's how he died. This great warrior dies because of in that. So subhanallah, right? So but he does a lot of great things. So we'll just leave it there. We talk about his son, Nuruddin Zengi, or Nuruddin Zengi. You could pronounce it both ways. He gets on the scene. We'll talk about him. We're going to talk about the Second Crusade. So we talked about the First Crusade, obviously. That was a plus for the Crusaders. They did very well they able to get these four principalities taken away from the Seljuk Empire or from the Fatimid Empire too. And so we're going to talk about the Second Crusade, what happens there, and then how they move on to try to capture the city of Damascus. And we'll talk about what happens there. So a lot of history, a lot of dates, a lot of people. Inshallah, should be fun. Okay. So just going back really quick. The First Crusade, we talked about, it was four main things that happened here. Started off in 1096. Okay. Little note, the Seljuk Empire, which I don't have a map of that today. Yeah, I don't have a map. They only came to power around 1037. So they're only about 60 years old when the Crusaders come in. So they don't got their stuff organized, and that's the reason why they lost a lot of their land. Okay. So they take over Antioch, which is like Antakya in Turkey. They take over Jerusalem. And so that's kind of where we're at. And we talked about how they took over the area of Edessa and they lost it. That's what we mentioned last week. And so we also talked about how they came down from Europe and went and started taking all these cities, Beirut, Tyre, Accra, which is part of Palestine right now, Jaffa, which is Tel Aviv, but it's Jaffa, right? And then went down to Jerusalem. So they took all these lands here. We talked about that was their route there, okay? And these are the four principalities that they had. Kind of mentioned that. So let's go over a little bit. We'll go back into time what we went over from last week. Last week we talked about 1150 something, where they took, Imad ad-Din was able to take over the county of Edessa. So I wanted to go back and come over and talk about the city of Aleppo, which is Halab, which is, even today, it is larger than Damascus. Now, obviously, we just saw a great uprising from the people of Syria. They've been struggling for about 12 plus years, and they were able to take power over Bashar al-Assad and take over their land rightfully from this guy that's a maniac. And so one of the main things that the, HTS, they call them, right? This group, right, that took over the land. One of the main things that they took over first was Aleppo. And Aleppo is one of the major cities in Syria. It's bigger than Damascus. It's much more populated than Damascus. And if you could take over Aleppo, then you're doing really well. And so this, I know, no one knows the geography. I know, even myself, we kind of know, we barely know the capital of Nevada or Wyoming. No one even knows that. So geography is always tough, right? So here's our Muslim lands. There's so much ancient cities. So Aleppo is up here. They call it Halab, right? If people say Halabi, right? People call it Halab. Okay. The English name is Aleppo. We'll just keep it there. Okay. So Halab is here. This is where Damascus, if you will, which is quite far from there. Okay. And then you go down. This is where Palestine is, and Jerusalem's will be way down there, if you will. Okay. And this was where the county of Edessa was. Okay. So Halab is here, and this is currently what we're talking about. This city here. Okay. So let me go back to over here. So the reason why I'm also going over this, I want you guys to kind of understand, and you might ask me why do I want you to do this, to understand the crazy and madness that was kind of going on during that time. There's Muslims killing Muslims, Crusaders killing other Crusaders or other Christians. People can't trust each other. People losing power. It's crazy. You know what I mean? If you think about our times right now, it's pretty bad. But if you were living during that time, you would probably think the world's probably going to end the next following year or something like that. I'm going to start at 1113. Okay, you could go back even more and you'll be into an infinite regression until Adam alayhi salam probably, but we have to start somewhere. So I'm going to start with this person named Alp Arslan. Now, Alp Arslan is the governor of Aleppo at that time. Now, there is a lot of different fractions in the city of Aleppo, and this is actually the current picture of Aleppo. This is one of the old, they call it the citadel. But this was built in BCE time, long time ago, but it's still there, which is, you see how it's how do you invade that area? They have this moat here. They usually fill it up with water. So if you're coming with your army here, they're shooting down arrows on you. This is the reason why they built their cities like this. You know what I mean? So that no one gets into it. And so he comes as the leader. He's told that, there's certain people in your city that you just need to kill and get out and get them away, because they're going to be they're bad news for you. Other Muslims, if you will. Okay. We don't like to use the word Muslims here because it's used as, other people, right? But anyhow, there's Muslim killing Muslim. And so he goes on a 2-year span of just killing random, all these people. Anyone that looks kind of funny at him, you're gone. Okay. And so he's killing people left and right, left and right. There are these individuals called Hashashin that are in the city of Aleppo. Now, I probably heard the word assassins, right? If you're a gamer, there's a thing called Assassin's Creed, but anyhow, don't worry about that. But there is, what is Assassin's Creed, or what are these assassins? They're actually were Shia Muslims, okay? Their name's called Hashashin. Yes, it comes from the word hashish, and you guys probably know what that is, but I'm not going to get to that. But it could be that that's what they were on, and that's what they were smoking, and that's the reason why they're crazy and wild people. Okay, so they were founded in this time slot here. His name was Hassan ibn as-Sabah, which he was a Shia. Okay, and they were part of this thing called the Ismaili sect of Shiaism. Yeah, I know. I have to go a little bit and digress now, understand what is Shiaism, and I don't want to get too much into that. So we know there's Sunni and Shia. The Shia, honestly, are the vast minority of Muslims in the world. Sunnis are like 90%, maybe 85. Okay. So the Shia, we know, we believe that they believe that after the Prophet's death, there is the power should go through his lineage bloodline, almost like royalty. Okay. Which, not really part of Islam, but nonetheless, there's some significance to the Prophet's family. There's a lot of significance to the Prophet's family, but anyhow. And so they're named Ismailis because they believe on this thing they call the Twelvers, Ithna Ashariya, where they believe in 12 imams, okay, that are guided. They're almost like prophets. It's really crazy that way they believe in them and what they could do. There's a lot to say about that also. Now, why they call it Ismaili is because after their fifth imam, who's named Ja'far as-Sadiq, who's not the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, but he comes way later, and his wife is the granddaughter of Hassan. Hassan and Hussein, the grandsons of the Prophet ﷺ. But through Hassan's line, the granddaughter, her name was Fatima, right? She's married to this guy named Ja'far. They have a son, and they believe after Ja'far, the sixth imam should be someone named his son Ismail. Okay. He had other sons, he had like 5 other sons, but they believe the lineage goes through Ismail. So they're called Ismailis. That's where that comes from. They're here, they're present in a little bit in SoCal here. There's a lot of them in Houston. I don't know why. But Aga Khan, yeah. Aga Khan, they believe that their main leader is a guy named Aga Khan. He's like a British guy that lives in Portugal, I believe. It's really weird. Very strange. Very strange. He is like the walking, talking interpretation of the Quran. Most people cancel him out of them as being Muslims, because they should make sujood to him. They do a lot of weird stuff. Okay. I know there's a lot of new Muslims in the crowd. So don't get like, oh, what is going on right now, right? But anyhow, there's people, there's Islam and there's people, all right. And we can't control those people, but the deen stays the same. If you follow it, then you're good. Okay. So he's also called Hassan ibn Sabah. His name is called Nizar. He gets his title of Nizar. So they call the Nizari Ismailis. Okay. And they're a very far off the cliff sect where they really believe in like this taking out leaders here and there, assassinations. Okay. And so they're assassinating people left and right. Okay. Leaders, even crusaders, which is okay. We have too much argument against that. But they're also killing a lot of other Sunni leaders at that time, and even Shia leaders at that time. So they're taking out people left and right. I'm talking about people walking in the middle of the street and they come and get stabbed and they leave. And no one knows what the heck happened. Right? There's a lot of that kind of going on. They're called the Hashashin. So Arsalan, he has a servant named Lutlu, okay, which means pearl. Doesn't really translate good in English, but enough. His name is Lutlu. And he kills his leader, his master. Okay. Lutlu is also walking in the street, and the Hashashin come and kill him. Okay, just take him out. He's kind of like the next guy up. Okay. There's another guy named Il-Ghazi. So now the people in Halab is saying, like, who's leading us? What's going on? And there's a Qadi there. And he goes out and reaches out to this place called Mardin, is in Iraq, and calls a guy named El-Ghazi. El-Ghazi, can you come over here and help us out? Hashashin people are killing people left and right. We need some type of leadership. He comes in there. Okay. He leads them. He dies, from what I understand, believe naturally or just normally. And this other person called Balak comes in. Balak's a really interesting individual. He comes into power. he finds one of the leaders of County of Edessa. His name was Jocelyn II. We talked about him last week, right? He goes on and catches his army. He defeats his army and gets the king of Edessa. Okay, remember, we're back in time. Jocelyn, I know it's a girl's name, but then we talked about it's a guy's name right now. They're going to change it later on. So it gets Jocelyn, capture them. You got the elite. Remember, there's only 4 of these people. So he gets one. He gets 25% of the Crusaders' leaders, captures them, and has them in his possession. Then you have the leader of Jerusalem. Okay, his name is Baldwin II, or Baldwin. He's French. Okay, that's my best French accent I'm going to give you guys today, right? So that Baldwin II, he hears that Jocelyn got taken. So Baldwin II, I don't know if you ever watched Kingdom of Heaven, but there's like Baldwin II. He has like skin issues. He wears like a mask. I don't know if you guys remember. I keep on talking about the movie until you guys don't watch movies, but I believe by the end of this class, I'm going to put the movie on for you guys because I keep on watching it because it's so good, at least the fighting parts. But anyway, and so Baldwin II goes up and he says, Jocelyn, I'm going to come and help you. Okay. This guy, Jocelyn, remember, he's from, this guy Baldwin, he's from France. He meets Arabs. You know, Arabs they like birds and stuff like this and camels. And so falconry was a thing. So you get a falcon, you could train it to fly, come back to you, right? So Baldwin learns about that. While he's going up here to fight against Edessa to go and get Jocelyn, he stops off at a river, does some falconry, and guess what? Balak comes and sees him playing with his falcon, captures him. Right? I mean, what an idiot, right? You think, well, what are you doing, man? You have an army. Why do you play? Takes his falcon also, and traps him. Now, Balak, this guy's amazing. He has the leader of, they call him Count, like Count Dracula, but they're called counts. I mean, like they're not Dracula, but they're counts are like the leader of that area. So they have the Count of Edessa, and he has the king of Jerusalem in his possession, in his jail, right? The Crusaders are like, oh my gosh, this is it. The Christians are done in this area. That's 50% of our leaders are gone. Okay, Balak dies. It's a crazy thing. He's walking on the street. He's getting an army ready. No one really knows. An arrow comes up and hits him here. Cuts his vein from him here. He dies. Like, I know this is how the world works back in those days. You don't know who shot that. Kind of like a drive-by shooting type thing, right? Where did that come from? He dies. The next guy comes over, this Tumurtash. Tumurtash is the son of El-Ghazi, this guy over here from Iraq. He's not even from Aleppo, but he comes into power. Once again, he likes alcohol. He likes all the kind of other stuff, right? And so what he does, he's like, I don't really like Aleppo. I'm your king, whatever. He says, Baldwin and Jocelyn, takes them out of prison, gives them a bunch of money, and says, go. You guys are free, right? They're like, what the heck, right? Are you guys just free? He lets them go and go. They're like, is this really happening? He doesn't kill him. He asks for some money back, right? But he lets them go pretty much without any issues at all. Guess what Baldwin does, right? He goes back to where he's from, Jerusalem, gets his army and says, you know what? We're going to come back and take over the city. So there's some guy in there that doesn't know what the heck he's doing. He let me out free. I'm going to go back and take over that city, okay? So they go back there. He leaves. This other guy named Borsuki comes in. Out of names, I know. And he hears a Crusader army is coming to take over the city. So people are looking, Borsuki, you're the leader of Mosul, which is in Iraq. Can you come over and help us? Because the Crusaders are coming. Borsuki comes in, right? He ends up defending off the Crusaders. The Crusaders have to go back. Baldwin doesn't get able to take over Aleppo. And the Hashishans go find him while he's praying in the masjid in Mosul, in the front lines of Juma. 10 people jump on him and stab him and kill him. And those are the Hashashin. And that's how he dies. Right? He's gone like that, if you will. The next person next member, Imad ad-Din, sees all this craziness happening. He said, hey, this is a great chance for me to what? Take over Aleppo. And so he goes into Aleppo. Everyone celebrates him because what happened is that after Borsuki dies, the Roman emperor, which is from the Constantinople, right? He comes down, John Cominas, and Baldwin II say, you know, let's go and work together. Remember, the Baldwin is a Catholic, okay? And the Roman Emperor is Eastern Orthodox. They don't like each other, right? But they're like, you know what? Hey, let's work together and take over Aleppo. That'll be great. If we could take over Aleppo, we could probably, you know, do other things. And so Imad is very smart. He sends a letter to both of them and says, you know, you don't even like the Catholics, right? Tells the Roman Empire, why are you working with them? They're just going to turn your back on you. He tells the same thing to the Catholics. Why don't you don't like them? They're going to turn your back on you. They go back, and what happened is that Baldwin, he tries to take over one of the cities of the Roman Empire. Roman Empire is like, Imad ad-Din was correct. And they end up just scattering and not fighting in Aleppo at all. So Imad ad-Din just takes over Aleppo, and he just takes over the city. Okay. Imad ad-Din now has Edessa. He has a bunch of other here. Let me try to see what's going what I put here. Takes over the power of Aleppo, focus on Damascus. We're going to go over this in a bit right here. So he has all these areas here already. So he's building what we call the Zankid Empire. That's important because this is where Salahuddin is going to rise to power. He's going to use these people, not really use them, but this is how he kind of gets up into power because of this. So that is how Aleppo comes into play, into the hands of Imad ad-Din. Okay. Go ahead and stick. I'm going to go back to the slide really quick. Okay. After taking back of Aleppo, he says, you know what? Let's go down to Damascus. That's like what the people do, is take over one city and just go to the next city and just keep on conquering over and over again. It's really interesting how they do that. So he takes over Aleppo, right? He's from Mosul. He comes over here and they say, let's go down to Damascus. He really wants Damascus because you can go down and get down to Jerusalem after that. You know, even today, that was very, very significant when the Syrians, freedom, fighters that were fighting, they took over Aleppo. What happened after that? They took over Damascus, like easy. And now they stopped there. And everyone's saying, please take over Palestine. We have a lot of issues in Palestine, right? And of course, Israel bombed the heck out of Damascus right after that. But believe me, it's probably still in their rearview mirror. They're probably going to come, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully soon. But right now, they're in Damascus. So same thing. He wants to go to Damascus. On the way, when he's coming down, there's a place called Homs, right? Hymns, right? The Homs. There's a fort there. He takes that from the Crusaders. There's a place called Balkh, which is a city in Lebanon, right? Balbek. He takes that over in that city here in Lebanon. It's a small city, but nonetheless, he takes it. Why is that significant for? Because after he takes out that city, he goes to Salahuddin's dad. His name's Ayyub, right? He doesn't really care about Salahuddin right now at all. He doesn't really know him. But he gifts that city to Ayyub, the father of Salahuddin. Okay. Why would he do something like that? There was a story that I mentioned last week, if you guys remember, that he got stuck in a situation, he almost got killed, and Ayyub came and helped him. So he remembered him. So imagine that. He's like, hey, I took over a city. I'm just going to gift it to you. That's like nice, like better than a gift card to like a store or something. I'm not sure, like, I'll give you a whole city. Like, okay, I'll take it. I'll get what I guess. I don't mind, right? So that's what they used to do back in the day. I don't know how that works, but different times, different place. So Ayyub has a city, okay? Now remember that, because when Salahuddin comes, they're going to start building what you call the Ayyub dynasty. Everyone wants to have their own dynasty. Okay. Imad Zanki gives it to Ayyub, the father of Salahuddin. He tries to go into Damascus. Okay. Damascus is crazy. There's a person named Buri who is a leader in Damascus. Okay. He has two sons. All right. One's I think Ismail. One is Maudud or Mahmoud. The one that's Ismail is like working. There's two different narrations. Either working with the Crusaders. He's in Damascus, but he's working with the Crusaders because he knows that Imad ad-Din is coming down to Damascus. So he goes and tells the Crusaders, come and help and protect me, because Imad ad-Din's coming. Muslims are working with Christians, okay, with the Crusaders. Quite kind of crazy. There's a story that his mom finds out, and his mom kills him. Okay, his mom gets an army, tells people to go, and they kill him. He puts his other son in charge. Okay, I know you guys are all like, what's going on? What's happening here? But this, I tell you, it's a crazy world back in those days. Okay, Mahmoud is pulled into charge there, right? He comes down. He goes and tells the Baldwin to come up and fight and help him. Unfortunately, Imad ad-Din cannot attack Damascus because of the Crusaders coming to protect the city, even though it's a Muslim-run city. But they're homies, they're friends, right? They're really close friends, right? So they're saying, you know what? It's okay. We're allies. I protect you. You protect me. You scratch my back. I scratch your back. And Imaduddin has to go back, and he never gets Damascus, but he has Halab here. He has Aleppo. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I can see a lot of your facial expressions. Everyone's kind of like, what's going on? But it's okay. Okay. So he has all these different places in his pocket right now. So we have Edessa, which is up here. He has Mosul, which is in Iraq, which is not shown on the map here, right? He has Aleppo, Halab, right? Homs, and he has Damascus. Oh no, you can get Damascus. Baalbek. There's Baalbek right there, and there's Homs. So he has he's carving out a little dynasty for him, little like empire for himself. He dies. I remember I told you a story about his servant that was drinking wine from his cup. He dies. But he has two sons, Saifuddin, which means the sword of Islam, and Nuruddin, which means the light of Islam. Remember I told you guys last week, I want all you guys to pick something Deen name, right? You know, everyone should have a nickname in this class, right? So pick Saifuddin, pick Nuruddin, right? Pick something, right? Inshallah, so you can feel part of the class, inshallah. You feel like you're part of it. It's like a game. Pick a character, okay? Right? So this is one. So Saifuddin, they're two brothers. Usually what happens with two brothers after their dad dies, what do? Someone kills each other. Yeah, we remember we used to play when 5 years old, but now you have a city, I have a city, I don't like you, let me kill you, right? That's unfortunately, this is how Shaitan whispers and they kind of listen. People, money, property is always an issue. But actually, they're really cool with each other. This is Saifuddin, you're in Mosul, you're in Iraq, hold it down there, how dad used to do it. I'm in Aleppo, I'm gonna hold it down, we're good, right? We're not gonna sneak up on me, you're not gonna try to poison me. Like, no, it's okay. Alhamdulillah, it works out well. So they have control. It's like a two-president, empire, if you will. Usually that never works, but that's what kind of works out right now. So Nuruddin Az-Zanki is in Aleppo. Saifuddin is going to end up dying naturally, from what I understand. And then there's another brother that takes over. Okay, so we're gonna work on there. This is where we're at right now. Little review. We talked about the First Crusade, the Second Crusade. This is where we're at right now. So we're in 1147 to 1149, about 2 year span. The Second Crusade it's not a long-lived crusade at all. You're going to see why. Okay, so we covered this. Aleppo was in between this, and also losing Edessa. Imaduddin took Edessa. That was in between this. When they lose Edessa, that's when the Second Crusade starts, and that is when the Pope at that time of the Catholic Church. He says, his name Pope Eugenius, I guess that's the best way I could pronounce it. The third says, I declare a Second Crusade. So he has this guy named Bernard. He's a good spokesperson. He's a clergyman. He goes into Germany, goes into France, saying, you're going to get your sins forgiven. You're going to be with Jesus all, and for eternity. If you die on this path, free the lands from the Muslims. They took over Edessa. And guess two main armies come to power. You have the king of Germany, Conrad II. So this, remember I talked about, the kings actually went on the battles. They weren't just like in their palace and you guys go, if you die, oh well, if you win, call me and I'll come over. But he actually went on the battle himself, okay? So, the king of Germany, Conrad II, or the third. I thought it was the second. There's three there, so might as well call it the third. And France, Louis the Seventh gather armies. So there's a French army and there's a German army that says they answer the call of the Pope. Like, yes, we have to take Edessa back. The Muslims are current, they're dirty animals, blah, blah, blah. We have to kind of conquer it from them. They're unclean. Remember we talked about this, how they looked at Muslims, okay? The Germans are the first one to go into the lands back into Edessa, to come over from Germany, obviously come all the way into Turkey and come down and try to get back that Edessa, that province. Now, when the Germans come, they're met by they were told by the Roman Empire, that emperor, that I will help you. When you come in Istanbul, Constantinople, I will help you. Now, what happened, there was a king of Sicily at that time, named Roger II. He starts attacking the the Greek lands, which is the Roman lands, but he didn't like the Romans. So anyhow, he wanted to conquer it. So what happened is that the Roman Empire said, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore. I'm getting my land attacked. I got to leave with my army. So he ditches the Crusaders. I can't really help you at all. So Conrad is on his own. He comes down. He's met by the Mas'ud, who's the emir of the Seljuk Empire in Turkey. Okay, they were called the Seljuks of Rome. It wasn't Rome, but they called themselves the Seljuks of Rome because they wanted the Roman Empire so much that they even labeled their name as Rome, and they had the same flag as the Romans because they wanted to. That was their goal, to take over the Roman Empire. He defeats the German army really bad. He puts them into an ambush through the mountains, rains down arrows on them. 9/10 of their army is killed. It's a massacre, right? Which is, they got beat down bad. Conrad barely escapes. He goes back to Antioch and like kind of regroups his troops again, right? And he says, you know what? I need help. The French army, Louis VII, is trailing behind him. So they haven't shown up in the scene yet. They show up, and Conrad says, hey, we got our butts kicked really bad, right? Can you come and help us, right? These guys are taking us down. Louis VII comes, right? He's heavily attacked by the same Muslim army again, okay? And both of them, their armies are almost massacred by the Muslims, which is really good, okay? What happens is that Conrad and Louis says, let's go to Jerusalem. Let's talk to their leader and find out, let's regroup, and this is what we could do. So, and they want to make pilgrimage to Palestine anyhow. Remember, they need to get their sins washed off, killing all these innocent people. You got to do something, right? So they want to go back to, so they meet up with Baldwin II, Baldwin III, right? The second one died now. So Baldwin III, and find out, what could they do? So they meet up there, and their plan is to go to Damascus and take that over. Okay. Remember what I talked about how the main reason for the second crusade was because of Edessa was taken over. Remember that? So why aren't they talking about going to Edessa? They picked Damascus. Remember who was in Damascus? Talked about it maybe about 5 minutes ago. It was one of their leaders in there was buddies with the Crusaders. Remember? So the leader of Damascus is allies with the Crusaders. So when they decide that they're going to fight and take over Damascus, the leader in Damascus, like, what are you doing? I thought we were friends. I thought we were helping each other out. Remember that? He's like, why are you trying to attack me for? Remember that the leader in Damascus, he was trying to push away Imad Zanki. Remember that? Now, guess what he does? And when he hears the Crusaders are coming, he goes to Imad ad-Din Zanki's son, Nur ad-Din, and says, can you come and help me? The Crusaders are coming, and I need help. I don't have an army to defend them. Okay. I thought they were my friend, but guess what? They're not my friend. This is kind of how things work, right? And his name is Mu'in ad-Din. Mu'in in Arabic means from awana, to be like, to support, if you will. So the support of the religion, of the deen, right? His name was Unar. It's easier to say Mu'in than Unar, but anyhow. So he's the governor of Damascus at that time. One of the closest leaders of the Crusaders. But now the Crusaders turn their back on him and try to take over his city. That's how things work at that time. You don't know who your friends are anymore. Okay. And so he goes and says, Nur ad-Din, right? I know I didn't like your dad very much, and I fought against him, and I called the Crusaders to attack your dad, and your dad couldn't take over the city. But guess what? I need your help now, right? So just forget about that past, too bad, but I want to be friends with you now. So I said, Nur ad-Din, can you come and help? And the Crusaders are coming. Nur ad-Din says, okay, and he calls his brother Saif ad-Din, who is in Mosul in Iraq. Why don't you come too and help me? Help defend the city of Damascus. Because if the Crusaders take over Damascus, they're just going to get back Edessa again. So they want to make sure they don't get that. Okay. So Nur ad-Din sends out with his army. They pick Damascus because that's the weakest military force there, right? They're not really thinking about Edessa right now. Okay, Nur ad-Din and Saif ad-Din comes to the help of the army in Damascus. The Crusaders have about 10,000 knights, 660,000 soldiers, 70,000 soldiers in general. So it's a big army, right? But the Damascus army is 130 soldiers. Okay. On the fifth day of the siege, Nur ad-Din and Saifuddin arrives with 20,000, which is not that much, but they're much more prepared, much more qualified to fight and defend the city. They come in there. Mu'addin did not want Nur ad-Din to take over the city. He's like, I just want your help, but I don't want you to take over my city, right? Because I want to keep it for myself. But he knows if Nur ad-Din wins, he's going to take over the city because his dad wanted it earlier. So he knows that he wants to take over the city, right? So what he does, he threatens the Crusaders and tells them, you know what? If Nur ad-Din comes and takes over the city, he's going to come and take Jerusalem after that. So don't try to, take your army back, right? Because if your army leaves, then Nur ad-Din will leave, and then we're all good. So he's trying to work with the Crusaders now too, kind of crazy, if you will. Okay, so he sends a letter to the Christian leaders in Jerusalem, and he's willing to give them the fortress, some other fortress. I give you this other fortress if you just don't come, because hope that they will withdraw, because he doesn't want Nur ad-Din to come and take the city itself, right? The Crusader army, Conrad II, they withdrew. They went back to Palestine. It worked. They bought them off. They said, hey, just take this fortress. Don't come and fight us, and everything will be fine. Conrad goes back to Germany, right? Louis goes back to France. And what happened here is that Nur ad-Din does take the city anyhow. And he ends up taking over Damascus. And so now this area here is all kind of freed of the Crusaders and part of Nur ad-Din's his dynasty, his empire, if you will. Okay. So he has Mosul, Aleppo, Damascus, and then they also have the other areas, if you will, that's around there. And that's how the Second Crusade ends. That is very short-lived, right? There was only two main armies. They weren't able to capture anything, and then they go back. So if I go back here, just go to the timeline here, right? They didn't get anything here at all, okay? The next crusade is going to happen in 1189. So this is like about 40 years in between. Salahuddin Al-Ayyubi takes over Jerusalem in 1187. So 2 years before the third crusade, right here. Okay. So we just ended right here. We're going to see in this period here, we're going to probably go over this next week. I'm not going to be able to go over that today. I didn't have the slides prepared for it. That when Salahuddin, this is where he kind of shows up after the second crusade. Okay. We're going to learn next week about the Fatimid dynasty in Jerusalem, in Egypt, and how that brings in Nur ad-Din Zenki, how it brings in Salahuddin, and how the Shia empire in Egypt reaches out to Nur ad-Din, even though they're Sunnis, but they need help, and how they're all working, they're buddy now, right? It's interesting, very, very interesting, right? And how that's going to work, and how that's going to bring in Salahuddin into the picture. So next week we'll finally get into his life and how he comes into play, and then how that actually works in terms of him getting to power in Egypt, and then eventually getting to power in Syria and Palestine. A lot of information. I did a lot of talking.
Sanji was the one who saw in his dream the prophet that his grave is being affected or something.
I did not come across that story yet. I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's very prevalent.
About Nur ad-Din Zenki?
I know the things.
Oh, okay. It rings a bell to me, but let me go check that. Because obviously we just started his life here. So maybe that might come up in the book later on. Yeah, I haven't got to that yet. Good question. Anyone else? Questions or comments? You're utterly confused. You might have to watch the video again during the week.
Along with Game of Thrones, you should show
Oh, okay. Article is good. Yeah, that's the Ottoman Empire, though. That's much later, but it does have a lot of similar.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Speaking of heaven, I didn't watch the movie, but I heard that the director's cut is like a much different movie, and it's like much better. They said that.
The director cut?
Yeah, there's like a much longer version of the movie, and it's like, yeah, people say it's way better.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not some of the things in the movie is not factually correct, but you have to get tickets and people to watch it. So, but most of it just gives you kind of like a visual of like what's happening. You read in the books, it's kind of dry. You don't really see pictures, but anyhow, there's some good, parts of it, some truth to it, if you will. Yeah.
What are some movies or films you would recommend so that we can
From this history? Yeah, I mean, that movie itself, I'm trying to see if it's pretty clean. I'm trying to see if there's one or two parts in there that maybe you could fast forward. But other than that, I'm not too sure anything that was, there's stuff in Arabic though. That's a problem. That the series that the Arabs have made on this history. Maybe it has subtitles. I have to check that. I nothing in English that I kind of could recall right now. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I could, yeah, maybe I could get some links from next week. Yeah, I myself haven't gone through it, but there's series that I've seen on YouTube. If you put in Salahuddin and stuff like that, you will have. And I believe it does have English translation, but I've not watched all those myself, honestly. I'm going over with mostly books and lectures to prepare for these classes. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good to see a visual of it. Yeah. But at least you understand how chaotic this world was. You know, Muslims are fighting Muslims and they're allying with the Crusaders, and they're like, Crusaders are coming after them after that, and they have to go back and work together. You know, people are getting killed left and right, you know, and it's really like a mayhem type thing that's kind of going on. What really helps out is when Nur comes in, he kind of really cleans a lot of that up. Of course, when Salahuddin comes in there, you know, for these individuals just to live and, you know, a few years is like it's a success. No one really killed you yet. That's amazing. No one tried to stab you. No one tried to poison you and invade your city. So it just, you know, it's really strange life. And of course, you never talk about the regular citizens or just in these cities that, you know, some army comes in there just sitting there, what they're going to do. And they become citizens of that area. And they know they don't really have much say.
Like, were there any I guess details that got lost from this time during the Crusades? Because like obviously, you know, sometimes people have agendas or biases, and this kind of comes to play into history, is that people.
Michelle, I don't know. She's sitting right here. I don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe she went outside. Yeah, dang it. Of my response to.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, just wondering, like, do you know anything about that? Like, were there things that got lost from this time, or things that I'm sure are disputed once it's
There's a lot of this, and there's some of like two conflicting stories that you see on there. And I skipped so many things. If you go to that book that I'm using from Dr. Salebi, there's so many things. I'm like, I'm cutting it. I just like the Halab story really well. I'm like, you know, I'm going to present that this Sunday. And even though it really does nothing to do with Salahuddin too much, but I think I was like, oh my gosh, it's fascinating. I'm just going to present it. But there's a lot in there. There's so many things that I'm cutting out. There's so many other fights that are going on. Muslims are fighting each other. There's the Shia issues that are in there that are working against the Sunnis. You know, working with the Crusaders. You know, that's a problem. We're going to touch on that a lot next week. We talk about the Fatimid dynasty, how they came into power, and how they are, you know, working with the Crusaders, and the Crusaders are actually turning their back on them, and a lot of other things that kind of just shows you like kind of what was going on at that time. But yeah.
That when we have these khutbahs, the Jummah khutbahs, why don't we incorporate some of this history so that we know, because we were taught Indian history like Ashoka and Mughals and all those things. So why don't we incorporate, because the Jews, they read their history a lot.
Yeah.
And we deprive ourselves and our kids from reading history. So khutbah is one of the things.
Yes.
One of the modes where we can add this history.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously what happened in Gaza, you know, over a year now is a big turning point. I would like to think of the Muslim in the world right now. And I think us as a party, even though we're in Garden Grove, by just having this class is, that's why the reason why I picked it's almost a protest and also part of the encouragement of keeping this momentum going. The more you talk about success and go over history of Palestine, and if you keep on pushing it, then, you know, inshallah, something will happen. But if you don't do it, then you can't expect it. If you keep on pushing resumes in a company and going this, one of these days you can probably get a job at one of these places. But if you're going to sit there and not do anything, then you're not going to expect to have that. So that same kind of analogy here. I think if we just keep on pushing this and learning our history, and which gives us hope and like, oh my gosh, not as bad as we think, and it's very possible, then it really encourages us, and it kind of brings this whole type of movement back in. And I think we're losing some momentum, I believe, after the elections and stuff like this. And I think, and all, you don't see those protests every single weekend and other things that are going on, but we really need to kind of keep that up and keep that momentum up. So I brought this up just to answer your question. And when I did a khutbah maybe about a month ago, it's a small part at the end, I brought this up about Salahuddin how he took over on Jerusalem. But yeah, it's important that we do this. So yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this brings up a very important point, which is that, like, we talk about ibadah and like the purpose of our lives. It's like something that Muslims are supposed to do is like learn your deen and then teach it to others.
Yeah.
Like spread Islam. That's one way of like giving dawah. It's like, yeah, now it's not the time to be like wasting time. Like a lot of people watching movies, playing video games, whatever. This is a waste of time. I'm gonna say it flat out. Like, don't waste your time watching this haram stuff. Like, just go learn your deen. I know that you say the book is dry, but it's like it's important to learn it from the book and the proper sources. So another big point is like we talk about the khutbahs and stuff is learn your deen from the proper sources. Understand the foundations, like build a strong foundation, and then like you said, maybe we'll get another great leader, inshallah, who will conquer and who will take back Islam. Talk about the khilafah and stuff. It's like inshallah will come back. We just have to follow the Salaf as-Salihin, and everything else will come into place. So just build that strong foundation. Learn your religion, learn the fundamentals, what are the 6 pillars of Iman, etc. Like, start there and then go from there.
Definitely.
There's lots of people I could recommend, but yeah.
I wanted to bring this up also because we look right now and we see what's going on in Gaza, and you're like, hold on, you have the Egyptians right there, you have the Jordanians, you have the Saudis, Turkey, like what's going on right now? And you kind of see a lot of this here, though, like here he's, Nuruddin's going down to Damascus, but then you have other Fatimids are not helping. You have other Muslims they're not helping. They're right next to each other, but they're not coming over to help Jerusalem. Remember, Jerusalem's taking over. Like no one's even caring about it. No one's even attacking them. Right? We're talking about Aleppo and Damascus right now, which is kind of far from Jerusalem, but those are steps going there. But we see that how that is even played on there, and that is done purposely. I mean, that's how the Crusaders took over Jerusalem, because Muslims are fighting amongst each other. And so guess what? You could just go in there and take Jerusalem. You go in there and do what you're doing right now in Gaza, and guess what? Everyone else's hands are tied, and they are like, well, they have treaties with the people who are bombing Gaza, or they are really caring for their own selves, right? And there's Muslim leaders that you guys probably heard from the biggest of places, right, in Mecca and Medina, that are saying that it's a Palestinian issue, it's not a Muslim issue. Let them handle it. That's their land. And you're like, how is that even possible? But a lot of that was said during these times too. That's a Fatimid land. That is the Seljuk issue. That's not our issue at all. That's what happened. The Christians are like, yeah, go ahead, you guys fight. We'll just take your land as you guys, fiddle amongst each other. And that's what they did. And that's why Imad ad-Din was so important when he starts saying, everyone, you guys see what's happening here? Like, wake up, let's go. And he takes out Edessa, which is, even though it's not Palestine, but it's the start. He's fighting the Crusaders. Everyone else is kind of like, all right, let's just leave them and worry about our own stuff, right? And it's true. Their empires are all in a mess. They're killing each other and so forth. But a lot of our Muslim countries, unfortunately, are like that. There's kings and stuff that are there. They're only working about their own economy, and the family members are fighting amongst each other also. So it's just kind of good to kind of see how this is kind of also played beforehand, to not have to like total, give up and say this is never going to happen. Look what's going on. It can happen. You just have to have the will, and you have to have the right people. Of course, the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's some, divine intervention, everything's divine intervention, but that happened that helped Nuruddin get into these powers, right? This person dies. Where do we get Salahuddin? He comes to power because some people just die naturally, and then he just kind of steps in there. You're like, oh my God, I'm taking over Cairo. Because this person died and that person died, and it kind of just got pushed up. And so, they'll all work out those things, but nonetheless, he's in the field there. He's doing these type of things. So, anyhow. Yeah, inshallah ta'ala.
Same thing, people will die.
That's honestly, that's the biggest issues with these tyrants is, number one, they don't have children with their wives, and so they don't have no one to take over the power. And that's one of the biggest curse that Allah gave to a lot of these people, that they didn't have sons that were able to take over. And number two, that they died. You know what I mean? Because they couldn't rule and take over another land anymore. This is like the two things that affected them the most, you know what I mean? Other than getting killed from their own family members, something like that, right? So unfortunately, that's what will happen. We might have to wait till these family members, these kings, either die naturally or something else, if you will. Not like necessarily hinting at something, but nonetheless. And or someone else comes into power. That's kind of, it's really interesting if you look at the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're going a bit of a tangent here, but I think it's very really closely related. When he talks about the Mahdi, he talks about the righteous next leader that's going to come and bring a victory to the Muslims, especially in Palestine. He talks about he will come at a time when the Khalifa dies and the two sons are fighting amongst each other. Who's going to be the next leader? And he kind of comes in the scene there. You know, there's a long hadith about this, that he goes in front of the Kaaba and people say, you're the next leader. He's like, no, I'm not. And people give him bay'ah. They give him allegiance. And that's, and then the army comes and says, here, take our army. You're the leader of our army. And that's how it kind of goes. But kind of what you're saying there is that the Khalifa, I don't want to predict the Saudi government family or whatever, who knows if it happened, but they kind of have like, a couple of sons and that are kind of, vying for the position there. That they die, and that's what the Prophet says, that they're who's going to be the next leader, and that's when he kind of shows up on the scene. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting that maybe that's what has to happen. Who knows? Yeah.
See, one of the things you mentioned, interestingly enough, this is one of the issues, even regardless of like the sect, Shia, Sunni, like everyone sort of unites upon Palestine. That's kind of like the interesting
important
thing, number one. Number two, it's also like, yeah, the thing is like, we talk about conquering Palestine, I love the energy, but it's also like, again, you got to be a good Muslim. People don't realize, like, even we look at why is this ruler not doing anything, but it's like, nobody wants to be a good Muslim themselves. They just want to point fingers like, oh, this guy's bad, I'll put this head, etc. But it's the reality is, you got to like, if you don't stop sinning, it actually has an effect on your
100%.
brothers and sisters. Like, even the beliefs you have, if you're committing kufr and shirk, then it's like, you're going to have terrible rulers. You're going to get, your brothers and sisters are going to get bombed as a consequence.
100%.
You're disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. And then you ask, why is all this stuff happening? Why can't we free Palestine? It's like, well, look at what you're doing first. That's like eating a bunch of like junk food and then why am I so chubby? Why do I have diabetes? It's like, I'm being serious. Like, it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, this is what sadly the Muslims are doing nowadays. It's like, it's like,
I've been there about the junk food. I hit hard right there.
Me too.
That was a personal attack. But
no.
but in terms of your point, we'll end on this. Salahuddin, one thing that when we go over his life, he was a person that never missed Jama'ah in the masjid. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know Allah will give you barakah and these type of things. You balance it out. Yeah, he has a will to defeat this crusader, but he was something that was qiyam al-layl and praying and so forth. He, like I mentioned, I think I alluded to that, he was on the path of trying to be a scholar. He wanted to learn like tafsir and hadith and stuff like this. And like his uncle that kind of pulls him in and says, come with me to Egypt. Well, I don't want to go to Egypt, and pulls him in there. And guess what? Next thing you know, he's leading Alexandria. And that's how he kind of it just works that way. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's very important, inshallah ta'ala, right? So inshallah, all of us could work on that. So nonetheless, inshallah ta'ala, may Allah, bless you guys. Hope you guys benefited. A lot of names. You could watch it back again throughout the week. And then next week, I won't get too heavy on the history and all these people killing each other and so forth, but this is kind of in the nature of this period, unfortunately.
That time and blended in.
Well, yeah, so I kind of talked about it a little bit today about that, you know what I mean? About what the current group in Syria, what they're doing. They took Aleppo and they went down straight into Homs and then went into Damascus, right? Which was almost exactly what Nuruddin Zanki tried to do, or Imaduddin Zanki tried to do. And so that's, it's forecasting that a little bit, what we're going to do. Anyhow, we'll make dua, inshallah. We ask Allah, Ya Rahman Ar-Rahim. Anta salam wa minka salam. Tabarakta ya dhul jalali ikram. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya Rahman Ar-Rahim Ghafoor. We ask you to forgive us for our wrongdoings. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to accept this time that we have spent and learning our history, Ya Rahman Ar-Rahim. Put in our scale of hasanat and yawm al-qiyamah. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to bless the ummah with victory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lift the oppression and injustice in our lands for our brothers and sisters, wherever they may be. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, feed them, protect them, build their homes better than they had before, protect their lives, Ya Kareem, Ya Rahman Ar-Rahim. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you for your Jannah. We ask you to enter us into your Jannah and help us perfect our ibadah and our worship towards you. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Barakallahu feekum. Allah bless you. We'll see you next Sunday.
No,